It's on. It is.
All right. Check the clock. Check the microphone.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not easy, right?
Right.
Okay. You ready, pal?
Give it the count, brother.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, friends, to the Jersey Alchemist. I'm your host, Dr. John Gerard Gallucci.
And I'm Philip D'Angelo. What's up, pal?
You know what? I'm a little tired today. You know why?
You don't look tired.
Well, thanks. I pay him to say that. My dogs had me up all night. Now, why? Where do my dogs stay at night? Well, if the weather is reasonable, they have a pen in the garage with a doggy door jump through to a pen on the back of the house. So that way, if I'm at work for a protracted amount of time, I don't have to worry about them because they can go inside and outside. It's kind of like a zoo enclosure. You know, when you go to the zoo and you go, oh, let's look at the wolves, and their terrain is empty, you know, and they're in that little, they're in their cubby, they're in their inside pen. You know, you're looking through the hole, you're thinking, come on, come out. We paid money to see you. My dogs have kind of a zoo enclosure inside the garage and outside in the backyard, but they can't get into the yard proper. So they're confined to, I would say, 12 by 10 garage pen. And when they jump through to the outside pen, that's about 25 feet by about 10 or 12 feet.
Oh.
So, yeah, you know, it's good. And it works great. It's terrific, except for in extremes of temperature. So, what happens in the summertime is if it's 100 degrees outside, the garage is even hotter. That's just even if I open up the windows, it's like an oven. Now, their pen is enclosed with 6 mil construction plastic and cardboard, and I have an air conditioner in the window. And the air conditioner is fairly efficient, except, and many people may not know this, that even with the best air conditioners, you can only drop a room's temperature up to 20 degrees less than what is ambient temperature outside. So you're not gonna, on a day where it's 100 degrees and you turn your air conditioners on, you're not gonna get your house down to 70. It ain't happening. Especially if you have a room with a window air conditioner. So in the summertime, when it's really, really hot, I bring the dogs inside on the first floor, and even when I have to leave and go to work, I kind of pray to the gods, please, 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 please let them hold themselves until I get home. In the winter time, you know, if it's down somewhere between 25 and 30 degrees, just a little bit below freezing, even though they're winter dogs, I bring them in and put them on the first floor at night. During the day is a different story. The sun comes up, it's always a little bit warmer. Last night it went down to 24 degrees, and I think I mentioned that in a previous episode. So I just didn't have the heart to stick them in the pen. There's no heater in the garage. So what were they doing all night? Chasing each other around, fighting with each other. They fight over a mat. Who's going to sleep on the mat? Who's going to go by the door? Who's going to go here? Who's going to go there? And then the older one, whose name is Lucky, who happens to be a wolf, Siberian Husky hybrid, he can climb the steps with ease. He flies up the steps. His girlfriend, her name is Rena. She's soon to turn 9. She is terrified of the hardwood steps. As a matter of fact, the last time she flew up the steps and then she tried to come back down, she just slid all the way down like a toboggan down those hardwood steps. Yeah. And she was crying after it. So Rena won't come upstairs. But Lucky, what does he do? Just to show her, I can do this and you can't. He goes up the steps, and if he really wants to teach her a lesson, where does he sleep? He sleeps at my bedroom door with his nose in the crack under the door, and I can hear him breathing. So if he has to go out and it's 5 o'clock in the morning, he'll howl but it's a nighttime howl because he doesn't want to be loud, but he still wants to wake me up. So he goes, ooh. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you just get it over with. Get it over with. Okay, let's get up, open the door, let's let them out. I love my dogs more than anything. But, I'm dragging today because they had me up all night. And by
Mm.
the way, I cook for my dogs. They don't eat dog food, they eat people food. No, they don't eat pasta, they don't eat macaroni and meatballs. I make them people food from the meat department. It's either chicken or turkey or beef and sometimes pork, and they love salmon with the skin. So that it's a constant rotation, and that's how I treat them.
Oh, that's pretty good. Remember back in the day, John, and I love to look back in retrospect. I mean, dogs were in a doghouse with a chain, a spike, and they
Yeah,
stood outside.
yeah, they did.
Only in
Yeah,
our generation did dogs start coming inside.
yeah.
You know,
Oh, that brings back some serious memories for me because we the three of us in the family, and my father's mother, my grandma, she did everything she could to thrill her grandkids at my mother's expense.
mm.
And if it was at my mother's expense, you could bet your ass that translates to being at my dad's expense. So what would she do? She would show up on Easter with a cardboard box full of chicks. Like not peeps, not sugar peeps from the supermarket,
Actual
chicks,
chicks.
live chicks, or three or four baby rabbits from the farm because they were farm people. They would go and get fresh eggs at the farm, and then if they, on Easter, the people that were egg farmers were selling baby chicks or they were selling baby rabbits. And she would come over with a cardboard box and plunk them down, and we were so jacked and so happy. And my mother wanted to go to the roof and jump off head first. Yeah. And then one by one, the chicks and the rabbits would mysteriously disappear. I don't know where they went, but they would disappear.
I have a pretty great, or maybe a gruesome story with an uncle
Oh,
on a farm
let's hear it.
about rabbits and asking me to pick out a rabbit. Which one did I like? And I thought, now listen, this is 50 years ago and it's still traumatic. And I said, well, me and my brother were like, oh, we like that one. And
Oh
I'm like, oh,
God,
we're gonna
I know where this is going.
we're gonna take it home. This is gonna be great. Yeah, we didn't take it home. Next thing we know, it was on the dinner table, and and we saw the whole procedure. So it's funny how people use animals just for a food source.
Wow. Now there's a great segue into the whole concept of animals. What do animals represent in this world?
Mm.
Our spirit guides, right? We all have them, folks. We all have them. You don't have to believe it. You can even not want to believe it. You still have animal spirit guides. You just don't know it. You're ignoring them. Don't do that. They love you. They're from heaven, and that's not a joke. But that's a great segue into wild animals, domesticated animals, household pets, and animals that we think of as food.
The food chain.
So my dad used to tell the story that, my dad grew up in a cold water flat in Newark, back in the 1930s and 40s. And they never went to a supermarket.
No.
They went to certain supply stores for flour and items that my grandmother would use to make food items by hand, making homemade pasta, pizza, pies, cakes, that kind of thing. They never went to a store and bought that crap. And what that did was that made it impossible for globalist corporations to poison our asses. Oh, that's another topic. We're going to back off of that, and we'll do that for tomorrow or the next day. But my grandmother would say to my dad, his name was Tom, Tommy, Tommy, in her kind of, old, she wasn't old, but in her Italian accent, she said, you come with me to the store. And the only person that drove in the family was my grandfather, and he drove an oil truck. And they would walk down the street, blocks and blocks and blocks, until they got to the store. And the store was the chicken market. And in the chicken market, they had chickens, and they had goats, and they had rabbits, and I guess other things too. And she would say to my father, which one do you like? Just like your story. Which one do you like?
Sure.
Oh, Mama, I like the black and white one. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a nice one. Oh, okay, great. And they would take it home. I don't know how they got it home. They would take it home. I don't know whether they had, like, here's a little steel cage and bring it back, when you come for your next rabbit. I don't know. I never got that side of the story. But what would happen is that rabbit would live in a cardboard box at my father's apartment where they lived in Newark, and my father would play with that rabbit for a month or two while my grandmother was fattening it up, feeding it the scraps from the table. The rabbit, ate most of anything. They gave them the vegetable scraps. And when the rabbit was ready, and when they were ready, my grandmother would say, oh, bring little Petey over here to the sink. And my grandmother would grab the rabbit by the ears, and she'd say, Tommy, hold his back legs. And she got her wickedly razor sharp butcher knife. And when she picked up the rabbit's ears to expose its neck, she would cut its throat, and the rabbit would scream and then immediately stop, and the rabbit would bleed out into the sink. And my father knew it was coming because this was a recurring theme. And that's how they ate meat. They killed their own chickens. And then the chicken farmers, and I remember the store when I was a little kid, they took me there, and it was still there. It was on Bloomfield Avenue, and it was right up the block from a place that we loved as kids, Falcone's Pizzeria. And I loved Falcone's Pizza as a 4 and a 5 and a 6-year-old. But the chicken stores graduated to, oh, you're going to pick a capon, a rooster. You want this one? Yeah, I want that one. And give me 2 hens. And they would grab him out of the pen, and then they would go in the back room and chomp. Off came the head. They would pull all the feathers and wrap it up in paper, and it was probably still moving. And my grandmother would take it home in a sack, and then she would hang them and boil water and kind of scald. Sometimes she would bring them home with the feathers still on, and I remember those days. But when they ate meat, they either killed the meat themselves, or the butcher at the chicken store did it for them after they picked out the chicken. That's being connected to your food.
Wow.
Right?
100%. Don't forget, eat the cows. You didn't just eat like for ground beef. I mean, there was intestines. There was every part of that cow. Because let's face it, anybody whose family came from another country.
Yeah.
My mother in Italy, she lived on a farm that was in the mountains. Like you said, you thought there was no stores here.
Right.
Over there, it was nothing.
Nothing.
It was all livestock, and that's how they stood alive. So
right.
people that came from the other side, they brought those customs over. And, I think that still happens to this day. I think in Brooklyn, the news said there was a pig running around, some ginormous pig escaped. So obviously somebody's still practicing that from some other country.
I guess so.
Talk about where's the Board of Health.
Yeah, no.
Back in the day.
You're absolutely right. And, my brother was a natural comedian. And, he's passed on. I wish he was here to tell the story of how very often on a Friday night, my father would pack us into the car. Family had one car. It was a station wagon. It was a 1962 station wagon with fake wood on the sides. That's the era we're talking. And we would go down to Newark or Bloomfield, wherever my grandparents lived at the time, because they They were apartment dwellers. They didn't have the money to buy or have their own house. And when we walked up those steps on a Friday evening, it was like we were going to Disneyland. We knew that my grandmother would have something wonderful cooking for us. It was usually, anything she had was always accompanied by the most amazing homemade pizza on the planet. I don't want to hear from the New Yorkers or the people from New Haven, Connecticut, or from the Philly people. When your grandmother is from Italy and moves to New Jersey, that's the best pizza on the planet for you. And truth be told, it's probably all the same stuff. It, Nobody's pizza was better than my grandmother's. It was an oil pie. She used to make the edges black. Oh, wow. What I would give for one of her pizzas now. But that was always to accompany some kind of meat. And if we saw that the oven was lit, we knew she had either a big capon with onions and potatoes, roasting in the oven. And a capon is a rooster, and they were decidedly larger than a hen. So everybody, it was almost the size of a turkey. It was almost like Thanksgiving. But if the oven wasn't lit and there was a big, 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 large pot boiling away with the lid on it on the top of her stove, we knew it was gabutzel. It was a goat's head. And she would say, Johnny, Tommy, come over here. Let me show you what Grandma's got. Grandma, I think we know what you got. Yeah, well, come on. Don't you want to see? Okay, yeah, we want to see. And she would get a mopine, a towel, like a kitchen towel. She would grab the top of that pot, and she would lift it, and the steam would roll up, and she'd have a big, huge fork. We used to call it a fork-a-tone, because anything with an O-N-E in Italian means big. Juchone is a big jackass. Chooch is a donkey. Chuchon is a big donkey, a big jackass. A fork is a fork. A fork-a-tone is one of those big barbecue forks. She would lift that lid, and boom, she would stick that fork-a-tone into the water, and we'd see carrots and celery and onions and potatoes rolling, and she would pick up a full goat's head. minus the skin and the hair. There was no hair on it. And of course the eyeballs were like wide open, and the lips were kind of peeled back, and you'd see the those bottom teeth sticking out at you. And that's all we ever really remembered from the goat's head. And my brother and I, nor my father nor my mom, we were not gonna eat the goat's head, because then we would go home and play with our dog, and some people in my family had goats in their backyard. The goat's head was where we drew the line. Now, other things that they coerced me to eat early on was, the gabutzella's brains, right? They used to have to crack the skull to do that. And my grandfather ate it with a small fondue fork, and it was a lot like bone marrow. My grandfather was the one that taught me how to eat bone marrow. And guess what? I love bone marrow. I love it. It's fabulous. Yeah, it's very fatty, just like the brain is.
Nothing went to waste.
Nothing went to waste. I didn't like drip or tripe. Tripe was the stomach and the intestines.
There's some restaurants now that have a special tripe night. If you're lucky enough, if you feel like you're up to it.
Did you eat that stuff?
I've eaten it at tripe night. Yes.
No. Not like your mom when you were small.
No. Just over at my uncle's place with the rabbit. We didn't know what we were getting. It was.
This will make people laugh. Were you made as a young kid to suck raw eggs?
That would be no.
Because the expression was, "Hey jerk, go suck an egg." Well, guess what? My grandmother, she thought I was the runt in the family. All of the men in my family on my father's side were 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". The lights are going. My cousin was 6'7", and I was a little kid, and as an adult I'm 5'10". She would say, "You come over here, Johnny. Come over here." And she had a little stool, and she would put it by, and this is, of course, in the kitchen in the basement. All Italians had kitchens in the basement, and that's where they really kind of let their hair down. That's where
Very well
the
said.
the gravy or the sauce, whatever. We're not going to get into that. Would fly. The goat's head, everything was boiling, but the upstairs kitchen
Never cooked
was
in it.
like
Museum.
that was museum quality. That kind of stuff. And she would have gone to the farm, and she liked the big jumbo double yolk eggs. And it was special if she says, I have brown eggs for you today. And she had a turkey skewer. It was like a little eye loop over here, and it was a long steel pin. And she would hold that egg, and she would go, and she would put a hole in either end of the egg, and she'd say, lean over the sink so you don't spill it. And she would make me suck a raw egg. And, the egg white, you couldn't tell, because you just suck it down, but I used to love the yolk. So if that sounds disgusting to you, that's how I grew up.
Wow. Kind of explains a lot. But they were special times. They were definitely different. And, we've progressed so far in so many different ways. I mean, just think of the difference between what happened back then and what happened back now. I mean, now, it's a shame, though. I mean, you go basic. What was good about that, and as prehistoric, I don't know, that's a right word, but no additives, no preservatives. Whatever you ate was fresh. And nowadays,
Right.
what do they do to chickens in chicken farms?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. They're injected with hormones, antibiotics.
What a regular
Everything back then, Phil,
Yeah.
was everything was organic.
Yes.
It was never listed as organic because it was the natural food of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was as fresh, obviously as fresh as it could be.
Right.
And nobody added preservatives. There was nothing. You bought it and you ate it
Right.
or killed it within a certain amount of time. I mean, I know with chickens now, what they do is not only do they inhumanely just cage them, it takes like chicken 10 months to mature.
I don't know.
All right, it's something like that, 9 to 10 months. But in the big companies, the Purdue's, etc., they need that chicken between 2 and 3 months.
Right.
So you could imagine how many steroids, injections they're giving that chicken.
Right.
That's caged.
Yeah.
And I buy my chicken at a natural farm in Jersey.
Do you?
Absolutely. And it's a different kind of chicken. I mean, when I buy the chicken in a supermarket, I have to say it is plump and it is juicy.
Well,
That natural chicken without the additives, it's not as good, but I know it's healthier.
right. You know where there's a real obvious contrast regarding roaster chickens. Walk into any of those big outlet stores like BJ's or Costco and go back into the meat section where they have all of the chickens roasting. And if you grab a Costco roaster chicken, it's as heavy as a 16-pound bowling ball. And wow. And when you get that home, it's like heaven digging into that if you're a meat eater. But then go look at what's at the Acme, and it's a third the size. If you go and find an organic roasted chicken, it's even smaller than that, and it's kind of crazy. Keep that thought, because I was going to say something else about what they add to the food we eat. Oh, let me give you an example of how vastly different it is to eat natural and to eat organic. And organic is the only thing we ate as kids, because big agriculture and big animal farming hadn't sunk its filthy teeth into the world yet. We didn't have to worry about organic, okay? But last year, I have a home, small farm garden. It's not a farm. It's a big garden, and no matter how I stay up with the the irrigation and the watering of my plants, and I fertilize them, and I make sure it's not too moist, not too wet. It's got to have good drainage. I follow all the rules. My plants are so big. And then here comes a tropical storm or a hurricane, and it's a deluge for 2 days straight. And when I emerge, when the deluge stops and the sun comes out, and I go back to my garden because it's at the back of a fairly large yard, it looks like the Congo. The plants have exploded. The eggplant plants are like 5 feet high. The tomato plants are 6, 7 feet high. The corn has shot up. I mean, it's crazy. And you go, oh, that's when you realize, what the hell is in the goddamn tap water? What is happening? Everything that we consume, from tap water to, to soft drinks, to hard drinks, to the food that we eat that's processed, is holding us back. It's poisoning our systems. And let the tropical storm or the hurricane or the 2 day massive monsoon-like rainstorm in the summer, let what you see that it does to your garden clue you into what's happening to us when we go to the supermarket and we consume the drinks and the food that are being packaged for us by big global corporations. It ain't good, folks. It ain't good.
Let's look at fast foods.
Oh,
I'm not going to mention any names,
right?
But let's look at fast food. Food. You get a hamburger. Okay. Now that hamburger, we talk about going to the farm and getting
Right.
the cow and the beef right there.
Right.
I don't even think that hamburger was processed in this country.
Probably not. No.
Right? So there's other food. So it's coming from another country who God knows when.
And they don't have to label it as such anymore. I think that they
really?
did away. Yeah, legislation, they stuck that in where you don't have to tell the country of origin, and I promise you it's crucial. You need to know it.
Absolutely. Not only that, what are the standards in the other countries? They're not standards of the United States of America, that's for sure.
Right.
So you don't even know what's going on over there.
Right.
And that beef is shipped, processed, shipped over to this country. I mean, how long until we get it? I mean, how many preservatives are in there?
Oh, look, from glyphosate, which is Monsanto's Roundup, which causes cancer, and I've been saying it for at least 10 years on Facebook. And I got the crap kicked out of me, and I get eviscerated and trolled and scoffed and ridiculed. You're a conspiracy theorist. Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now? And I had some real smart, accomplished, educated people say to me, you're ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with Roundup. It doesn't cause cancer. Oh, yes, it does cause cancer, right? There's that famous video that was circulating on YouTube where there was somebody interviewing one of the public relations people for Monsanto regarding Roundup. And he had, I think, a half a gallon of Roundup in a big plastic, container right on the table as they were filming. And as this guy from the company was lying through his teeth about how safe it is, well, the interviewer pulled out a glass, put the glass on the table, opened up the container, and poured the guy a full glass of Roundup. And he says, if you believe what you're saying, drink this.
Wow.
And the guy got really flustered and got up, and I think he walked away.
Wow.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And so, that show Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe,
Yeah,
right?
I
Mike
love
Rowe,
that show.
he's great, very interesting guy. And he did a segment on modern fisheries and hatcheries and how the fish are bred and raised and farmed. And I already knew all this stuff because I looked into it, I researched it, but they'll have these big, huge concrete troughs filled with thousands and thousands of fish. Let's say they're salmon, and they feed the salmon basically desiccated or dried out chicken shit from the chicken farmers, right? Hey, what could be better than Instead of throwing your chicken shit away, we're going to sell it as fish feed. So they drop a load of these pellets into the trough with thousands of salmon, and the salmon eat to their heart's content. And then when the salmon defecate, when they poop, it falls to the bottom of that trough. And then what do? They open up a couple of locks and levees, and here come the tilapia. And the tilapia are eating the salmon feces from the salmon that were fed the chicken feces. Right. But now they're so tight in their quarters, so to speak, that the bacterial count is just way too high. So there's a conveyor belt and a hopper, and the fish get, regardless of the type of fish, they all get kind of corralled into this hopper, and there's a big rubber conveyor belt that brings the fish quickly up through a window into a processing plant where they're not getting farmed, they're not getting killed yet. And there's a bunch of employees with air guns, and they're injecting each one of these fish with antibiotics. Beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. And then before you know it, they're down the chute and they're back into the water again. That's where a lot of your bacterial antibiotic resistance comes from. It's not just from the indiscriminate use of antibiotics written by family practitioners and internists or surgeons. No, it's from animal farming. And the chickens go through this and the cows go through this because they're so tightly packed in. It's inhumane, it's disgusting, it's filthy, and they get diseased. Now, the next topic, and I hope we got past this, was not too long ago, and I don't know how many years, I hope that they outlawed this. The beef that was used in fast food, pick your company, fast food hamburgers, right, beef, they were able to process, put into the meat mix, downed beef. And that topic, that term downed beef, well, all the cows were out there, and they had to kind of round them up and, shoot them into the hopper, which is that narrow corral where they go into the trucks or right into a slaughterhouse. But downed beef is an animal that's dead in the field. Just dead in the field. Rotten, septic, they didn't care. Maybe that thing weighed 800 pounds. Maybe it was 1,200 pounds. They're not going to let that go. That down beef is going to market like the rest of them. And they put that into the mix, and it got ground up and mixed into the rest of the batch of ground beef. So places like, and pick your fast food outlet, your favorite brand, they could not sell that meat because it was too septic. So they would mix the meat with chemicals that were lethal if you ingested them, just to kill the bacteria. Then the meat had to go into vats where this chemical was changed and then extracted from the mix. And then that whole beef mix where the chemicals that were killing the bacteria were extracted from, it came out as what was known as pink slime. And the pink slime was then shot into molds and made into burger patties. And they put all sorts of spices and sugar into the burger patties. Why sugar? Because sugar is addicting, and it gets you to crave what you just ate. So is cheese, which is why you can't go to a Burger King or a Wendy's or a McDonald's or a Taco Bell and the person selling you the item is politely harassing you. Oh, and with cheese? Because they're told to say, oh, and with cheese? Because the casein in the cheese is addicting. And the food industry calls that craveability. That's a nice little whitewashed way of saying we've got them hooked. So if they have a couple of items today, they're coming back tomorrow.
I know that sugar is a big thing. I mean, as far as addicting, even with bread, people know that if you heat up bread, the sugar seems it not only lives up the bread, but the sugar will rise to the top. And when you bite into that piece of bread, that's the first thing you're going to taste is a sweeter side of it.
Interesting.
And talk about where's the FDA in all this? I mean, What's going on? You know, we have government everywhere, and
Yeah,
now when we really need it, I mean, don't tell me they're bought and sold, John. The FDA. I mean, that'd be hard to believe. I drip with sarcasm.
he just said, "Don't tell me." Um, any agency that is, let's call it a watchdog for an industry that's worth billions and billions of dollars, money is the root of all evil, or the lust for money, right? And whoever out there thinks that these watchdog agencies are clean, you're stupid. How's that? You're just, I'll be nice. You're naive.
Slow.
Yeah, yeah. They're you know, the CDC, pick whatever three-letter agency you want, they're all corrupt. Why are they corrupt? Because humanity's corrupt. And, you know, little Johnny going from door to door selling Hershey bars for the Cub Scouts may not be corrupt. But 30 years down the road, when little Johnny is working for one of the three-letter agencies and he's somewhere at the top and there's billions of dollars to be had if people just look the other way, there's your corruption. It just happens.
That's a shame. No integrity whatsoever.
No, we live in a world without integrity.
Amen. I was one time I had a friend, and he owned a vending business. Okay, now you want to talk about even with big companies, now even small companies. And I went with him one day, and we went to some vending locations, and he was putting salads in the vending machines for healthy choices. Okay, and I'm like, wow, you're putting a salad in there. You must. When are you going to come back? Like later tonight and get it? Because how long can a salad sit in a vending machine? He goes, oh no, it's sprayed with formaldehyde, so it lasts longer. Now, how is that? And that's an embalming
They were
fluid.
spraying
The salads.
healthy choice salad with formaldehyde. Now,
So it would stay like
right,
3 or 4 days.
right. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with formaldehyde, a 40% solution of formaldehyde in water is what's used to embalm dead bodies. It denatures the protein. It generally kills germs that would be there. And denatured protein and biological substance kind of lasts longer. But they're, look, when I was a teenager, I remember a story broke that the chickens at the supermarket had a kind of a yellow tinge. And then they found out that they were injecting the chickens with coloring, and they were also injecting the chickens with formaldehyde. This is, of course, after they were dead, because they would be dead. You know, you would kill them with the formaldehyde. But how unhealthy! Let's talk about the styrofoam tray that the meat item is sitting in at the supermarket. Polystyrene used to be for years and years and years suspect of causing cancer. Suspect, not anymore. Polystyrene, good old-fashioned styrofoam, is no longer suspected to be a carcinogen. It causes cancer. So if you go to the store and you see a piece of meat and they're all there, they're sitting in a styrofoam.
How about a cup of coffee?
Oh,
forget about it.
Right now, the national coffee chains have finally gotten away from styrofoam cups, especially when you're using the styrofoam with hot liquids, or even worse is if you aren't having coffee and you have tea and you put lemon, like an acid substance. Have you ever looked at the inside of your styrofoam cup after you've squeezed lemon into tea? There's a ring of erosion. So you have a massive load of polystyrene in what you're drinking, and that's a substance that causes cancer. The plastic, when I was maybe 19, 20 years old, that was covering the meat in the supermarket, that was injected with formaldehyde, that was sitting in a polystyrene tray, that was acrylamide or acrylamide. It's another substance that causes cancer. It's not suspected in causing cancer. It is proven to cause cancer. So people, this part of this podcast purpose is to make you aware, not to be a downer, but to make you aware that humanity has kind of run away with itself. From the days of my father living in a cold water flat where his mother, my grandmother, would say, let's go pick a rabbit down at the butcher shop, and then raising the rabbit in the house as a pet for a month and fattening it up, and then come here, hold the back legs, and my grandmother would cut its throat and skin it, and it was on the table, that night or the next day. We are so far removed from that. Nothing had to be labeled as organic back then because everything was organic. Today, I promise you, you are being poisoned unbelievably every way you turn. And it's time for us as a species to stop poisoning the planet, to stop poisoning ourselves and poisoning others. So that whole concept of the hypocrisy of if you love your animals and you love your pets, but you are purposely dissociated from animals that are food items, I understand. I understand that there's 7.7 billion people on this planet and everybody has to eat. And I don't deny that. But the methods of modern animal farming are so deplorable, they're so horrible, that it makes one stop and think twice about whether or not you're going to support that industry.
John, we talked about animals, okay, the chickens, the rabbits, the cows, the beef. We talked about salads, all this stuff's out there. Even something basic, for parents, they wanna give their kids a bag of cookies off the shelf at any supermarket. I mean, turn around and read those labels.
Yeah.
Read the encyclopedia list of ingredients that are
Right.
in those cookies that you think, oh, it's just a cookie, I'll give it to them. It's horrific.
Right.
What's in
It's
there.
a chemistry book, and what goes hand in hand with having parents that go food shopping, grab whatever they can, is that usually the mothers are with the kids. Could be the father. That's kind of changing around today, and that's okay. Um, but the kids are coerced by television commercials. And when the kids get to the supermarket, how many times have you been in the supermarket where the kids are throwing a tantrum because they want this cereal or that cereal? And it's cereal that might as well be on the top 10 poison list. It's got every disgusting, filthy, horrible ingredient in it. All of the FD&C food colorings are all petrochemical poisons. They're either aluminum salts or they cause cancer in lab rats. I'll never forget, when I get in a mood, I whip out my iPhone and I'm in the supermarket and I'll take a list of the ingredients on some of the major sellers that people are buying for their small children. And I said, what's this? What is this Blue Lake #1, Blue Lake #2? Oh, what a lovely name they give this food coloring, Blue Lake. Oh, honey, let's go to Blue Lake this summer with the kids. Oh, yeah, sounds wonderful. Until you look it up on your iPhone, it takes you to the chemical company that makes it, and it's a poisonous aluminum salt. People, don't eat, don't drink, and don't inject aluminum into your bodies because it's all part of what's called heavy metal poisoning. And my mom just died of Alzheimer's, and if you section the brains of Alzheimer's victims, pathognomonic to Alzheimer's would be amyloid plaques agglomerated with aluminum in the brain. Guess what? Aluminum is great for baseball bats, umbrella poles,
siding,
I guess, right?
gutters, yeah.
Lounge beach chairs, but don't eat it, don't drink it, and don't inject it. And I don't care what excuse the vaccine industry has for why they use aluminum. Oh, it enhances the immune response to the target antigen. Okay, fine. Um, you know what? Think of something else. We're being aluminum poisoned everywhere we go. And I remember looking up, I think it was one of the FD&C greens. I think it was either blue 6 or green. And this was on cupcakes in the bakery section. And some of the cupcakes, I think it was out there for St. Patty's Day or something, and all the foods are colored green. Fine, it's a festive time, it's a holiday. And I looked up this chemical. And if you just read the first page, you kind of get bored with what you're reading and you just sign off. And that's what they depend on. But if you're a crazy nut like me and you sniff out the bullshit, you're on page 12, 13, 14, 15, and it says adverse effects causes liver cancer in rats. So, Mama and Dada, would you go to a chemical supply house and say, can I have a half a gallon of such and such green? I want the stuff that causes liver cancer in rats because I want to make my daughter some cupcakes because we're going to have a birthday party at her house. And she just loves green icing because that's what you're doing. We got a little bit away from the animal farming thing, but
it's food.
One is linked to the next. And so where are we going with this when we look? This podcast is all about exposing the crap that's going on in the world. And we are in that era, the era of everything is being revealed. And no, this is not just us, and I'll repeat it, shoveling shit to get you worried and say, oh my God, I'm not going to watch those two guys because I come away feeling like the world is going to end. No, the world as we know it had better end. And who's going to make that happen? You are. Phil is. I am. And how are we going to do that? For God's sakes, people, the only way you can do that is by, and we've said this before, by your capacity as creator beings. Does it sound fanciful? Does it sound like a sci-fi movie? Well, it may sound that way, but it's the truth. You're children of the Creator. Again, I'm going to say it. You're fractals of the Creator of the universe. And a fractal just means a tiny piece of, but not a lacking piece of. You are just a little tiny fraction or fractal of the creative force of the universe, of God, if you will. So, if you think that you don't have a vested interest in creating a better world, then the world is never going to change. Then we're all going to be stuck in the same bag of shit, and we're going to be doing some kind of goose step to the New World Order. And I promise you, people, the New World Order is not your friend. Remember what has been said? You will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, guess what? No. We will own everything one day because we are the natural heirs of the earth, and they will be pried out of their positions of power. And the only way we're going to change the world, people, from the corporations running the planet and telling the countries what to do, to kings and queens and prime ministers and presidents, to the military, big pharma industrial complex, to big agriculture, to animal farming, we have to have a change. The change will come with you, with us. Be a creator. Create the change. How does that happen? Connect to source. Pray and meditate. I'm gonna say that toward the end of every one of these videos is the only way we will have a better world. The only way we will treat the planet better is to have reverence for the Creator and to treat our brothers and sisters as ourselves. And when Jesus was asked by the Pharisees, which two are the greatest of all the commandments? Which are the greatest commandments? Jesus said there are two. And one is from Leviticus and one is from Deuteronomy. It's love God with all your heart, mind, body, soul. And the other one is to love your brothers and sisters, love your neighbors as yourself. Is that so difficult? Apparently it is that difficult. We've allowed people with nefarious intent to have that notion completely buried in us. And it doesn't matter what religion you are from. You could be from no religion. Have reverence to the creative love energy of the universe. Have love for the planet. Have love for your brothers and sisters that are human beings, and have love for your brothers and sisters of the animal kingdom.
Well said. And I think another purpose of these podcasts, John, awareness. It's not a gloom and doom. It's you just take the blinders off. Just think about what we're saying and just be aware of really what's going on out there. That's all. And do you come to your own conclusions? Right. You're all intelligent people. Come to your own conclusions and figure out what's going on. Because, common sense has a lot to do with your conclusion.
Yeah, no, amen. You're right. And I think I was going down a path where I wanted to, underscore the concept of being harassed and distracted. When that mother has to go food shopping and she throws her 4-year-old into the shopping cart and she's, going up and down the aisles and the kid is screaming and she's worried about paying bills and she's worried about her husband's job or her job. Everything is a worry because we've all been turned into debt slaves. And so, you know what? The last thing that mom needs is for that 4-year-old to throw a tantrum over why can't I have such and such brand of cereal? Why can't I have such and such type of cookie? I want sugar frosted this. I want sugar filled that. And they're just too beaten down to do the research, to take the time. They're too beaten down to care. And they're trying to make ends meet. And I would say the people that are perpetrating this on the planet, and it is happening intentionally. There's a lot of people out there who think they're really, really smart, and they would say to me, "Pah, you're such a conspiracy. You're a joke. You're a tin hat wearer. There's nobody out there with that agenda. You're full of shit." It's absolutely part of their agenda. So I'm not sure what else I could say other than, like you said, Phil, take on an awareness. Become aware of where your food comes from, where your drink comes from.
There's that old saying, knowledge is power. Gain as much knowledge about any of these subjects we talk about,
Right.
especially something so important as feeding your family or feeding yourself.
Right.
Knowledge is power. Learn, read, listen, not just to us, to anybody out there, and come to your own conclusions.
There you go.
Common sense.
Cool. All right.
Beautiful.
I think we put out a few pointers, exposed a little of this and that.
Great topic.
All right.
Good job.
All right.
Thank you, John.
See you again soon.
Peace. Turn my mic off.
54 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was good.